What's up, everybody? It's your boy KG. We got episode 15 of Free Knowledge. I want to thank you guys for tuning in for another episode, another week of just spending time with me, hearing exactly what the free knowledge is going to be for this week. So this week's episode is entitled, How Do We Know That the Holy Spirit is Speaking to Us? And how I came up with this subject was I was just going through thinking about a lot of times when I go through and do interviews with people and they ask me about the book and they say, hey Courtney, like how did you come up with the book? And the first thing I always tell them, which is the truth, is that God gave me every word that was on every page of the book, and I just say, He just spoke to me and He told me what to write, and I wrote it down. And a lot of people will say, well, the next question would say is like how do you know the Holy Spirit is speaking to you? How do you know that God is speaking to you? And I break it down into these simple things, and this is the free knowledge I want to give you guys today, is that when you have that thought in your mind, like is God speaking to me right now? Is He telling me to do this or not to do this, or pause on this, or go forward with this? And just think about this simple breakdown I'm going to give you guys right now. So the first thing is that we all have the knowledge of knowing right from wrong, and when you break down that common principle of knowing right from wrong, that'll help you a lot of times, because I know if you're watching like a old school cartoon or watching a TV show, they always show like the devil on one shoulder and an angel on another, and they're battling to tell you what to do, whether to do this or don't do this, or having that battle back and forth. We've all seen that vision on TV, cartoons, TV shows, whatever it may be. So that vision is true. That happens every day. We have decisions that we can make every single day, and we can either take the right route or we could take the wrong route. And what happens oftentimes, and for me, that always comes back to it, is just knowing the aftermath of the situation. And so whenever you make a decision, and this is my personal experience, is that whenever I made a decision and it was right, I always get confirmation from it. And by confirmation, what I mean is that for example, let's say like I made a decision on something and I said, yeah, like, is it God? Are you telling me to do this? Are you telling me to move? Are you telling me to take this opportunity? Are you telling me to remove this person from my life? And then I'll get a confirmation, like God will come back to me and tell me, like sometimes it's through a television show, a commercial, a family member, a friend, or I might be listening to the radio in the car, and it'll literally say exactly what I'm thinking about in my mind during that time when I ask God for confirmation. Like I try to make a decision on something and I'm like, okay, did I make the right decision? And later on it'll be like a random commercial that comes across and it says exactly the same thing that I'm talking about, that I was kind of worrying about, thinking about, and that gives me that confirmation to say, oh wow, thanks God. I appreciate that. And when you build that relationship with God, you'll realize that God has a sense of humor. He's going to talk to you. He's going to talk to you in different ways. You don't have to look for him. Once you already talked to him, you're just looking for that answer. He'll meet you exactly where you are. And that's, to me, when I laugh so much from having that conversation with God, or having that relationship with God, because he'll come to me and speak to me in the most random moments, and I'll just be like, wow, like, God, you funny. And it's just like the funniest thing, because I know for me, that's the confirmation that I needed in the aftermath to know, like, I made the right decision. And then the other side of that coin is the conviction. So when I stand back and I have to make that decision and I make the wrong decision up front, but I don't think it's the wrong decision up front because I went with it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I felt like this was the right thing to do. And oftentimes, as soon as we get done doing something, or even most times, I would say from experiences with myself as I grew with my spiritual growth and maturity, is that like now it's like as soon as I do something wrong, it convicts me right on the spot. Like I'm like, you know what, I was wrong with that. Let me go back and go change that, or let me go fix that, or go repair that relationship, or let me take those words back. Let me pray for that person. Whatever it may be that God convicts me to do, then I'm going to do it. And sometimes it might not be right there in that space because we might not be spiritually mature at that moment to realize what we did was wrong. And that's okay, because that happens for everybody. We're all growing. We're all growing at different pace. So for me, there's been times in my life where I've done things in the past and I don't realize till years later, and I'm like, oh wow, that was wrong. And I'll go back and seek, and if I can repair that relationship with that person, or fix that situation in some way, some shape, form, or fashion, then that's what I'll do. So that's the biggest thing too, is that after you have that general principle of knowing right from wrong, it's looking at the aftermath, making that choice, does it give you confirmation or does it convict you? And that will often let you know if that's truly the Holy Spirit that is speaking to you. Because either way, the Holy Spirit is going to speak to you. But after everything goes through, if you get that confirmation, like you heard the right voice. But then secondly, if the aftermath happened and now the Holy Spirit is speaking to you again because you didn't do the right thing on the first time around, then you get that conviction. So either way, the Holy Spirit is going to speak to you, but you have to hear that voice, because a lot of times people think like, God's just going to scream at you and just tell you these different things. But for me, in my very own experience, it's like he has a soft voice and he just speaks to me throughout my day, telling me the different things that I have to do, the things that I have to correct. So just keep that in mind whenever you're going through. And the last thing that I want to kind of leave you guys with is that the best thing that we can do with every experience is that making sure that we're consuming the knowledge and the experience that we're gathering from it. So, for example, if you go through a situation and you're at the beginning of making a decision, like, hey, should I move to this new city, or should I take on this new job, or hey, should I, marry this person, or should I start this relationship with this person? Should I remove this friend from my life? You have that question in your mind. You're talking with yourself, and you're like, God, like, should I do this or should I not do this? Okay, so at that point right there, you go through, you make your decision, whether it's right or it's wrong. You make that decision. So let's say, for example, you make the right decision. You go with it. You get confirmation on the back end. So once you get that confirmation, make sure that you take that knowledge in and that you consume that experience that you're going through, because it's very important to help you in the future to be wiser. So now you're like, okay, I know God's voice. I heard his voice. Now that'll make you be more keen to that next time around to say, you know what? God is speaking to me. That is his voice that's telling me to do this right thing. And then the other side of it is that when you go through that experience, any of those situations, scenarios that we just talked about a few seconds ago, when you have those different things in front of you, you're asking for to do, like, what am I going to do in a situation? And let's say you make the wrong decision. And when you make that wrong decision, you get that conviction, whether it's right away or it's down the line. Once you do that, you have to consume that experience. And what I mean by consume that experience is that you have to take it in, because the only way that you can become wiser is that you take in the experiences that we all go through. And I think that that's something that's helped me out tremendously, is that when I go through something, whether good or bad, I like to just sit back and just look at it and say, okay, how if I did something that was wrong, like, how can I be better? And for next time, if this happens to me, or if somebody else, one of my friends or one of my family goes through it, I can be able to give them the knowledge and say, hey, you know what? I did that. This is what the outcome. Try doing it this way. Or on the opposite side, if I did it and everything went through right and I got the confirmation I made the right decision, is that I still sit back and say, okay, let me gain from that experience. Let me be a little bit better next time whenever I come to another decision, to have the same thought process that gave me the confirmation on the back end of that decision that I made. So definitely take that all in. I hope that definitely helped you guys with, when you come to those moments in your life and you're wondering, like, how do I know the Holy Spirit is speaking to me? Remember those different things. And I'll leave you guys with 3 takeaways to take away from it, just to kind of take and jot down on a Post-it, or, write it down in your notes and have it on the screen of your phone, or share it with your family and friends. And these 3 takeaways, the first one is going to be, the only way we know God's voice is through building a relationship with him daily. And the reason why that's very important, because once that's just like, for example, let's give you an example. If you have a best friend, you have a family that you talk to on the phone very often, the only way that you know this person, when they call you and you can hear their voice, that you're like, oh, I know, oh, this is my sister, oh, this is my brother, this is my best friend, is because you spend time with them, you know their voice. And the only way that you can do that is by spending time with that person. So the same goes for when you have that relationship with God. The only way that you're going to be able to know his voice, know how he's speaking to you, knowing the things that he's saying to you, is that you have to spend time with him. So we have to dedicate time with him daily, whether that's through prayer, reading the word, and just hearing from him, whether that's, praise and worship, just listening to some good music to put your spirit in the right place. But put yourself in a place where you're drawing closer to God, and then once you do, you'll be more familiar with his voice. Second thing is confirmation over conviction. And again, that goes back to when you're making that decision, and you're hearing the good thoughts, you're hearing the wrong thoughts, and you have the moral principle of knowing what's right and what's wrong. We all have that. So at the end of the day, when it comes to it, you want to pick confirmation over conviction because you'll be in a better place, even though conviction is not a bad thing because it'll help you if you gain the wisdom, if you gain the knowledge and experience from it and utilize it moving forward. So keep that in mind. Confirmation over conviction. We want to make sure that the things that we're doing, we heard the right voice, we did it, and God has given us the confirmation like, you did a good job, my son, my daughter, you heard my voice, you did what I told you to do. Lastly, is kind of going tied into this, a good segue to it, is that we're gaining the wisdom through the experiences that we endure. And that's something that we talked about in the beginning of this episode, is that making sure that whatever it is that we're going through, whether it's good or bad, that we're consuming it. We want to make sure that we're taking that experience in because, again, it can help us for the future to make the right decision, to make sure that we're more familiar with hearing God's voice, or it can help us to help others that are around us, impact the world that's around us, our friends, our family, co-workers, whoever it may be. Consume that knowledge to not only help yourself, but to help others. To kind of give us a quick recap of the 3 takeaways. Again, the first one is the only way we know God's voice is through building a relationship with him daily. Then the second one is confirmation over conviction. And then lastly, gaining wisdom through experiences that we endure. So I thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. I appreciate you guys for always tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share with your family and friends. You never know who needs to hear this motivation, this free knowledge that's going to help them get through the week, get through a day. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Have an awesome week. Love you guys. God bless. Love is love.